past has taught us. Oh,
sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
All right, thank you, everyone. Want to say thank you so much for everyone for being here for our today's webinar titled Intro to Rainwater Harvesting Systems. My name is P. Wade Ross, and I am with Texas Small Farmers and Ranchers Community-Based Organization. And I will serve as your host this evening. And before we jump into today's presentation, a few quick housekeeping items, especially if this is your first time joining us. You all have been automatically muted, so only today's presenters are currently on camera. But please feel free to use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Also, we'll, after our presenters speak, we will open things up for questions. So we will try to keep the duration of this meeting less than 90 minutes so we can get you back to your families on this Tuesday evening. And we thank you so much for taking time out to join us. Lastly, just know that this webinar is being recorded and will be dispersed to everyone within the next 48 hours or so. So we do encourage everyone to not only re-listen to some of the nuggets that are going to be shared here today, but also if you know someone who could not attend for any reason, but probably needs to have this information, would be interested to pass this on to them when we shoot out that recording. So I'm going to try to do something a little bit different. We usually send out surveys at the end of our presentation. Doesn't always work out so well. We don't typically don't get a lot of those back. So I'm gonna try to do something a little bit different, but I'm not a Zoom guy, so we'll see how this works out. But what I wanna do is launch a quick poll. And the question in this poll is, how familiar are you with rainwater harvesting systems? And you're going to get 3 choices, and I want you to pick one of those. So if you could take a minute and just plug in which one fits you the most. All right, we've got about 66% in so far. I'm gonna give it a few more seconds. All right. Okay, so that is our results show that about 63% are unfamiliar with water harvesting systems, which tells me that everyone's in the right place here and that this is something we need to do. Hopefully I'm not sharing anymore. But anyway, tonight's featured speakers are from NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service. NRCS is a federal agency with local office employees that work directly with landowners like you and I and producers to provide technical expertise as well as financial assistance on conservation management of natural resources. So things such as soil, air, water, plants, and animals. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in and introduce tonight's presenters. We have with us Kevin Lestraps, and Kevin is a proud 1988 graduate of Texas A&M University, where he earned a bachelor's degree in agriculture engineering and was in the Fighting Texas Aggie Band. So thank you for joining us and bringing that with you too, Mr. Lestraps. And Kevin has actually spent the last 33 years with NRCS, and during his career in federal service, he has worked in Oklahoma, Oregon, and Texas. And Kevin returned to Texas in 1994, where he worked after his stint, I believe it was Oregon, where he worked in Pecos as a field engineer, then in Midland in 1998. And he accepted his current position as Zone 4 engineer in 2004. Okay, and Kevin loves his work, providing engineering leadership, training, design services to 38 field offices, which cover 50 East Texas counties. And I know our organization has worked with Kevin on a number of other occasions as well. So thank you so much for joining us again here today. And also we have with us Keith Sides, who will be presenting. And Keith is a state irrigation engineer for NRCS. He was born in Lubbock in 1990. Excuse me, I messed that up. You weren't born in 1994, but he was born in Lubbock. But in 1994, he did receive his bachelor's degree in agricultural engineering from Texas Tech University. He started with NRCS in 2009 and as a field engineer and moved into his current position in 2015. So of course he wasn't born there. I think that would make you a lot younger. It would be tough for you to have that much tenure with being born in 1994. So apologize for that. But, Keith is raised on a cotton farm in Lubbock, and he likes to say, kind of joke around that he grew up with a shovel in his hand. And his journey's been a little bit different. He brings a different point of view because he started out as a small irrigation designer and salesman in the private sector for almost 15 years before coming on board with NRCS. So we're glad to have you with us as well, Keith, and anxious to hear some of the things that you have to share. And certainly I won't forget Mr. Willie Holman, who I asked to join us, and Willie really spearheaded this meeting and this event tonight. I kind of reached out to him, our organization did, and just said, hey, can you put something together for us? So we asked him to join us in this as well, just in case, because Willie's background, he's a graduate of Alcorn State University, and he began his career as a soil conservationist, working in various locations throughout Texas. And right now he serves on the Civil Rights Advisory Committee. He's been doing that for the past 5 years. And he also is an outreach specialist. So he's responsible for providing clients just like you and I with NRCS programs and other agency programs. So I did ask him to be on here to join us, especially as part of the Q&A session, as some of us may have questions and a lot of us may be interested in what the next steps are to take advantage of some of these programs that we're going to hear here tonight. So these three gentlemen will be sharing with us tonight, and hopefully we can assist us to become better producers, better growers. So please give them your undivided attention. As I said before, please take good notes. I did ask them to talk to us like we're 4-year-olds, like we know nothing about engineering, not talk too high level on that technical level, because we don't do engineering speak here. We're farmers and ranchers. So they promise to abide. But if you happen to hear something or hear some wording or phrasing that you don't quite understand, please write it down, and in the Q&A section will be your opportunity to have someone elaborate on that. So with that said, Kevin and Keith, the floor is yours. Please feel free to share your screen.
My name is Keith Sides. I'm the state irrigation engineer for the state of Texas with NRCS. I'm going to talk to you more, not so much about the projects, but just kind of give you some general information on when you're talking to either the NRCS personnel or your local irrigation suppliers. Irrigation, like engineering and like any other industry, has its own vernacular. And so I want to kind of give you just an insight on what people are talking about when they say certain things, and then we'll get into just a little bit of the design and how you're going to use it in just a minute. Like I said, I want to give you some quick definitions. The first one that you'll see or that you'll hear a lot is TWD, or thin wall dripper line. You'll also hear this called drip tape. It's probably actually more commonly called drip tape than thin wall dripper line. But if you ever work with it, you'll notice there's a difference between what is a true drip tape and what's a thin wall dripper line. The drip tape, I don't know how many of you've ever dealt with. There's a manufacturer out there called T-tape, where they actually take a flat piece of polyethylene. They have an emitter ribbon, they fold it over, they seal it, and that becomes your tubing. That's a drip tape, where manufacturers like Natafim and Irritech and Rivolus, and you'll hear those names kind of spread out throughout this presentation as well. What they do is they use a truly extruded product, so there's no seams, there's no holes, no breaks in the line, and they have emitters that are installed on the inside of the tubing at given intervals all the way down the line. It's usually very thin. We're talking 4 mil wall thickness is about the thinnest one that you'll see out there, and you'll see those a lot in some of the smaller gardens. It's usually a 1-year kind of throwaway product because it is so thin. And then you'll see some of the thicker ones that we use with some of our subsurface stuff, all the way up to a 25 mil wall thickness. So what we're talking about is 4 thousandths of an inch thick up to about 25 thousandths of an inch thick. And that's each wall. So again, these type of emission devices will have pre-installed emitters on a given spacing. They can range from 6 inches to up to 30. You can actually get spacing that's further apart than that. But that's kind of a minimum order kind of thing, and you really start getting into a lot of tubing at that point. The emitters will range from as low as a 0.11 gallon per hour. So if you sit and think about that, it takes 10 hours for that emitter to put out a gallon of water. So you could put it over your a jug at night, come back in the morning, it still wouldn't be full. The thin wall dripper line, the highest flow emitter I know of is a 0.7 gallon per hour emitter. So again, you're still talking very, very low flows and very, very small amounts of water that you're going to be applying to your crops. This is probably what the greatest majority of you will be using. It's a heavy wall dripper line. You'll hear it called dripper line. You'll hear it called poly line. There's as many names as there are people out there for it. Again, this is an extruded product. It doesn't have any seams in it, so it's just like a piece of PVC pipe. There's no seams. There's no breaks in the wall of it. These are a heavier wall. They're 30 to 35 mil wall thickness. You can get some heavier ones, but then you start running into some different issues with it. It can come with or without emitters. So if it doesn't have the emitters in it, it's called blank tubing, poly tubing. And what that does is that allows the users to actually put in the emitters wherever they want to and however many they want to at that point. You see these a lot on tree lines, shade trees, windbreak trees, where your spacing between the trees may be, you're talking 8 to 10 feet between a tree or between two plants. and you don't want to be using that water in between, especially if you're in a limited area, or if you're going to be using your water that's coming off of what you're going to what you're going to harvest from the rainfall. You don't want to be using that water on something that you don't want, just on blank ground out there. The emitters that go in the heavy wall dripper line will actually be a lot higher flow than what you'll see on the thin wall dripper line. Generally, what you'll see on these is from a 1/4 gallon per hour up to 4 gallons per hour per emitter. So depending on what kind of plant you're working with, what kind of, again, if you're working with trees and they're a little more mature, then you're going to be on the upper end of that flow range and what you want to be able to use. If you're talking tomatoes and other plants, you're going to be down in that lower end, that 1/2 to 1 gallon per hour emitter range. These heavy wall dripper lines, they do come with preset spacing. You can actually walk into an irrigation distributor and ask for a emitter line with a 12-inch spacing. They'll probably turn around, pull off the shelf for you, and you're off and running. The 24 and the 36-inch spacing are a little more unusual, but they're still out there. And again, you can get a specialized spacing if you want to, and you have the use for it, and you're going to be using a certain spacing on your plants that is out of the ordinary. So the next part, you heard me talk about emitters. There's 2 styles of emitters. There are PC or pressure compensating emitters. These are really nice for individuals who don't have a lot of practice and don't have a lot of experience with drip irrigation. They work for these individuals because they give you the same amount of water over a fairly wide pressure range. Most of the emitters, most of the PC emitters that you're going to be dealing with and will have access to, they'll start going into that compensation mode at about 6 psi. So, I mean, you're talking fairly low pressure on that one. And most of them will stay in that compensating mode or have the ability to stay in that compensating mode up to about 60 psi, which is kind of what most people run in their tires on their cars. Some of them are a little bit higher, some of them are a little bit lower. That is all based on how the manufacturer has set theirs up. They can be pre-installed either in the thin wall dripper line. There is a thin wall dripper line that uses pressure compensating emitters, or in the heavy wall dripper line where you're running a little higher pressure, a little longer runs, or again, you can put them in yourself to put the water exactly where you want it and nowhere else. Again, you're talking a flow range from a 1/4 gallon per hour up to about 4 gallons per hour. So, you're getting a pretty good range of flows that you're going to be able to work where. These are really nice, like I said, for beginners and people who don't have a lot of experience with drip and micro irrigation, and on some high value crops, where if you're trying to grow strawberries, these are going to what you're going to want to use, because they give you the same amount of water all the way down the line, and you're not having to overwater one end of the strawberry patch to make sure that the other end has the water that it needs. The flow variation is something that we look at technically, and it basically just tells you what the difference in your highest flow emitter and your lowest flow emitter is versus an average emitter. With the pressure compensating emitter, your flow variation should be 0. But again, if you're within those pressure limits, again, generally from 6 to 60 psi. On the other end of the spectrum, you'll have your non-PC emitters or just your standard emitters. These are really nice for small runs, flower beds where a little bit of extra water, a little bit less water isn't going to hurt you. They do vary with pressure. So, and they're not going to vary a lot. When I say vary, I mean, we're talking tenths or hundredths of a gallon per hour. So, generally what these are rated at is they're rated at a certain flow, say 2 gallons per hour at 10 psi. And the easiest way to maintain that 10 psi is with a pressure regulator. And we can talk about those here in just a little bit. What you don't want to do is you actually don't want that pressure to drop below 10 psi, because on most of your emitters, they go into what's called a laminar flow or a very, very smooth flow. And so it doesn't burn the pressure and it doesn't stop. It can actually speed up the flow through the emitter. So you can actually get more water out at a lower pressure. It uses turbulent flow. And if you've ever seen one of these emitters, they look like they have a labyrinth or a flow path that does nothing but drives back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And all it does is it creates turbulence inside that emitter to burn the pressure so that you get the right amount of water when it comes out. Again, these emitters can be pre-installed on, any kind of given spacing, 12-inch, 24-inch. Again, it just kind of depends on what you are looking for in your application. And they can go up to 4 gallons per hour. Again, these are really nice for small runs or short runs where you're not going to have a lot of pressure difference from one end of the run to the other, or one end of the row to the other. Flower beds, flower pots, that kind of thing is kind of where you're looking at these non-pressure compensating emitters. The last emission device that you'll really kind of see a lot are the micro sprays, the stick sprays, the spinners, the foggers, the misters, anything that actually puts out more than about 2 gallons per hour. These different apparatus that you see kind of in this, the flow on these can vary a lot. The low flow that you see there, that 2 to 3 gallons per hour, are generally in foggers. Foggers or misters. Foggers or misters are generally found inside of greenhouses, where they are used for propagation and establishment of young plants, where the young plants don't really need a lot of water, but they need an atmosphere that is conducive to their growth. They can do the medium flow, the 10 to 20 gallons per hour. These are kind of what you're going to see in a lot of your, again, you're going to see a lot of these in your greenhouses. If you're working with trees, small B&B trees where everything's kind of compacted or controlled root zone, these medium flow emitters or medium flow sprays are going to be really nice because they're going to put out a decent amount of water in a fairly confined area. You do have the high flow capability, kind of that one in the upper right hand corner that's called a Seninger IWAB or mini IWAB. And when you're talking about those are larger areas where you've got some ground cover or something that you can't, putting an individual line with emitters in it would be impractical. And so those are the micro sprinklers that you're going to be looking at to cover a sizable area with a decent amount of water, as far as emitters go. They can have your fixture rotation emission points. If you look at 3 of those pictures, those are fixed emission points. They don't move. They just use the water pressure to push them up through an orifice onto a plate and out into the green material. That mini eye wab that you see in the upper right hand corner, it actually goes to an orifice and it actually makes part of that spin and wobble to get the throw and the coverage. When you're talking about this, the sprays that you see will give you more. They'll give you more coverage with the same flow. So if you have an emitter that will do 4 gallons per hour, and you have a spray that will do 4 gallons per hour, the spray, because of the way it's made, it will actually give you a larger coverage area because it's not made to burn all the pressure and put the water just on the soil surface. They are for larger areas. Again, if you're growing ground cover or some small trees or something like that, then these are going to be what you're going to be wanting, because they do allow for that higher flow and allow for better coverage on your system. Like I said, the foggers and the misters, you'll see them in enclosed greenhouses where you're trying to set up basically an environment that is, for lack of a better term, rainforest-like, where it's very humid, because the seeds in the soil like that type of environment where it's warm and moist, and they don't have to expend a lot of energy to sprout and start to grow. This is one of the things that when you go in and you talk to the people, your landscape suppliers, you're going to want to know this kind of information. You're going to want to know what row spacing you're going to have. So if you think of rows like a highway, how many lanes of traffic are you going to have? Are you going to have 2? You're going to have 3? And how far apart from one car to another is it going to be? Generally in greenhouses and in the small agricultural and the urban ag that we've looked at, you're talking 1 to 2 foot row spacing. Your plant spacing is going to vary based on the type of plant that you have. Again, ground cover, your plant spacing is going to be very small, very compact. Tomatoes, strawberries, your small fruits and vegetables, you're talking 8 to 12 inches probably somewhere for plant spacing. If you're talking about watermelons, cantaloupe, squash, what else is big out there? Cucumbers, that kind of thing. Your spacing could be up to 3 to 4 feet between plants. So that's something that you have to keep in mind when you're looking at these systems. If you're in what NRCS calls a hoop house or a seasonal high tunnel, are you going to have multiple plant species inside that high tunnel? So are you going to have squash on one side and tomatoes on the other? Because that's going to change the way that your systems are set up. Are you going to be dealing with orchards? Some of our larger producers have, sizable orchards, but, even if you're talking, a 3 or 4 acre orchard, your plants and your trees are going to be on a certain spacing. With the rainfall harvesting, you probably are not going to want to cover the entire area. You're just going to want to use the water at the base of the tree. And so are you going to use micro spinners? Are you going to use tree loops where you actually run a heavy wall dripper line or a dripper line around the tree? Or are you going to run emitter lines on either side of the tree to promote your root growth? If you're going to be using vineyards, are you going to lay the tubing on the ground? Are you going to hang them on the trellis? Again, are you going to try to cover the entire area? Or are you just going to want to water just at the base of the vine stalk? So those are, again, we're talking about something that not everybody's going to use, but the rainfall harvest is going to give you a good grasp on what you want to do and how you want to do it. Again, your water intervals, how many days are you going to go between your irrigation events? You know, if this is just outside your back door, then your days between your irrigation events can vary based on the soil water the water that's in the soil and how much where your plant is in its growth stage. The benefits of the drip, you can do one event per day, really kind of just spoon feed that plant, give it what it needs right then, right there, and be able to meet what's called peak consumptive use. Or if it uses a gallon of water a day, you'll be able to give it a gallon of water a day. You know, where's it going to be? Is it going to be indoors? Is it going to be, you know, in your alley? Is it going to be on a walkway? Community gardens are, again, with the urban agriculture that is up and coming with NRCS. The community gardens, the food banks, those are something that we're really looking at, and our urban conservationists that are out there in some of the larger metropolitan areas are really doing a good job of working with these nonprofits and other places. Are they going to be in hoop houses or our seasonal high tunnels through the NRCS funding? Are they going to be in greenhouses? Are they going to be in raised beds? Are they going to be in pots? I mean, just kind of where is this water going to be used is kind of what you're looking for. And I'll give you, this is our, this was given to our engineers a couple of weeks ago. Can we help everyone? Yes, we can help everyone. We're having to change our mindset, because generally what we deal with are large scale producers. We can help everyone with CTA. CTA is Conservation Technical Assistance. And basically, if you have a question about what emitter, you know, how big of an emitter, what kind of spacing, you know, we can come in and we can help you with that. Like I said, everybody can get CTA from NRCS. Unfortunately, at this point, not everybody and not every situation is going to be eligible for some kind of cost share through one of our programs. The urban ag that we are, again, it's an up and coming part of NRCS, and so we're working on new scenarios, basically new cost share new ways to help the urban and small agricultural producers benefit from our, not only our technical assistance, but from our financial assistance as well. And like I said, we do have urban conservationists. We have 6 of them across the state, 1 in Lubbock, 1 in El Paso, 1 in Dallas, 1 in San Antonio, 1 in Corpus, and 1 in Houston. So I don't know where everybody's from, but that gives you a good, again, those are some of the larger metropolitan areas that we have around the state. So that gives you a good broad blanket that we can work with. Sorry. Some of the best websites, if you're not familiar with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, they are another invaluable source of information for drip, micro, any kind of irrigation, any kind of horticultural or agronomic questions that you might have. When you come in and you talk to NRCS, it really kind of depends on who you talk to as what kind of information you're going to get. The engineers like Kevin and I, we're going to talk technical terms to you, and we may bore you to death. You talk to the planner, and they will do what they can with the information that they're given to help you out. But the AgriLife Extension guys, they are the ones that are out there doing the research and finding these new ways to work with individuals like y'all, and they're really kind of on the forefront. There's an AgriLife Extension. There's a horticulture. The horticulture actually deals directly with plant horticulture. I mean, obviously, but more of a decorative landscape kind of area, where the AgriLife Extension is going to be more of your cash crops and fruits and vegetables. Don't be afraid to go to the manufacturer websites and look at the information that they have. You'll see on this slide, there's a number of manufacturers. That is no way an all-inclusive list of drip and micro irrigation manufacturers. Those are the ones that I've just dealt with the most and came to me off the top of my head. Your other sites, your other information are your local suppliers. Your lawn and landscape guys are, again, they're going to be invaluable to you and to us to be able to take that information that you have, kind of mold it, and really be able to design a good system for you that's gonna work for you. It's gonna work for you for a long time, and it's gonna do what you want it to do. Again, there's tons of information that are out there. I had a professor in college tell me one time, said, you don't have to know everything, you just have to know where to find it. And so that's kind of where I want to leave off. You don't have to know everything. Know what you need to know, and come to the people who are really going to help you be able to make these decisions and point you in the right direction and help you design your systems. With that, I'll be on to help you with the Q&A session. And I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Wade.
All right, thank you so much there, Keith. That was good insight. And if you don't mind, I know someone pointed out, I think my chat is locked. I'm not sure what happened there. So anyone who is looking to use the chat, please feel free and use the Q&A instead. But if you don't mind, Mr. Sides, if you could forward me afterwards the links that you posted on the screen, as well as the distributors. And I promise to everyone, when I send out the recording, I will send that information out as well. We typically post it in the chat, but for some reason our chat is locked.
Okay.
All right. So Mr. Lestraps, did you have anything to say before we jump into Q&A?
Well, I did see, I found the chat, and Mr. Lawton, Billy Lawton, has asked Keith a question that he could go ahead and address about underground drip in pastures.
That's going to take a couple of questions from me to really answer if I think it's a good idea or not. It kind of depends on what you're going to be growing in that pasture. If it's strictly for raising grass, raising forage, then it works. It works very well. Some of the early stuff that I saw on alfalfa when subsurface drip first got started, they were getting more weight with more cuttings in the same amount of time as they were with the flood irrigation. If you're going to have a pasture and you're going to grow grass and you're going to graze it, it'll still work, but there's a lot more management that goes into it, because you have to worry about compaction and other damage that is going to be done by the animals that you're going to be grazing on that pasture area. Horses, if you put them in small pastures, horses will compact the soil so hard and in such a manner that instead of having the soil profile move the water laterally, you basically get straws from the emitter to the surface, and you have wet spots every 24 inches along the tape. So again, it kind of depends on what you're going to be doing in that pasture. If it's going to be strictly for graze or strictly for haying or forage, and you're going to be putting in a machine, taking it off and then moving out of it, again, that's going to be a great deal. If you're going to be grazing it, then there's some other questions and some other managements that you have to go into.
All right, so let me see what else we got here. Looks like there was another question that popped in. Oh, okay.
He was telling it was improved coastal hay, Keith, is what his situation.
Again, if you're going to be haying that, then the biggest concern that you're going to have is to make sure that your system's been off and your soil is dried down enough that you're not going to compact it around that tubing or that thin wall dripper line.
All right. So I've got another question. Can you kind of elaborate on what various types of producers commonly use the rain harvesting system, just for some of us who are novices, who are brand new to rainwater harvesting, even the concept of it? Is it small gardeners? Is it how large your acreage is it for, maybe some of our cattle ranchers on here, and everything in between? What does that look like?
I'll be able to answer that, Keith. I've got some slides right away. So if we want to table that and go through what I've got, it's kind of unique. You'll see a little bit of, I'll just warn you, some joking. Y'all are, I'm gonna guess, from around all over Texas. Keith is born and raised in West Texas, High Plains. I got the privilege to live out there for 10 years. I'm of a Central Texas born, then Army brat, then my wife's from Deep East Texas, Palestine. So I'm gonna have a little bit of joking in the differences, because they had some good pictures of systems out there that do seem to be a little bit larger than the ones that I've worked on, except for one that we'll see. And I'm going to try to share here, and I'm just going to keep talking and hope that it will. I have one screen. I'm hoping it's going to work. If it doesn't, you'll just see the smaller version. But here goes. All right. So is everybody just seeing this?
Yes, that looks good. Looks good.
Great. There. Okay. So here is a little East Texas system for someone who just has a few acres north of Palestine, near the huge metropolis of Mount Alba. They have some gardening aspirations and truck, you know, gardening for profit, but they're slowly building. They're also raising a family. They work day jobs, and they've been doing this on the side. And this was a system that they were able to use one of their basically their sheds that was over their little RV is back here, and there's like their garden shed here, and they've been experimenting it for basically their own use, friends and family. They haven't really sold anything yet, but that's been their decision. But got to go on a review visit with them 2 years after they installed it, a year and a half, and they were just super happy with it. And I asked them, you know, what would you do differently? And they actually said, well, I'd make it larger if I could afford it. So they feel like these two 2,500 gallon tanks fill up routinely, but you know, we're in a rain belt of 40 to 45 inches there in Palestine. But just to give a little background, and then we'll get back to real pictures of real jobs. All of our NRCS jobs, for those of you who've cooperated with a local field office before, or been able to you know, get some technical assistance, or maybe had some resource concerns that needed, you know, an equip contract to address and help y'all. One of the practices available has a weird name, but it is rainwater harvesting. But you know, the government, we have to have a different name for everything. So it's code is 558, and it's called roof runoff structure. And it's supposed to last 15 years. These gutters that we put on to basically outbuildings, it can be for different purposes. I'll show you a system that needed improved water quality. It can help with erosion around those outbuildings if you're having problems with that, you know, because of the rainfall off of the whole length of the gutter. But most of it is to capture that water and use it for, you know, truck gardening, I would say. It would be the smallest level entry use, because believe it or not, even 5 animals, you know, five cow calf, you know, operation that you're just kind of hobbying, doing, you probably, even, you know, everybody knows the drought that we had the summer. You would not want rainwater to be your sole source of water for your livestock, not ever. You would want to always have well water, rural water, reliable pond or reliable creek as your backup. And that's not to say that it's not effective to use the rainwater, and it's possible, but it is a system based on the variability of rain. And if you were depending on it in July and August of this year, June, July, and August, you would have had to sell the animals. You had to bought water from a neighbor or something if you didn't have it. So most enter into rainwater harvesting for some kind of irrigation of crops in East Texas. In West Texas, I've heard that their biggest, most popular use originally was because they're traditional large farms. They do a lot of herbicide and pesticide spraying, and having pH 7.0 non-mineralized water really bonds well with chemicals better than their naturally high mineral groundwater that they've been using. So that was attractive to them. And also, due to infrequent rains and small amounts, they've used it for wildlife water on some of the ranches where hunting is a bigger, you know, income than cattle at times. So basically it's what our cooperator needs is the size system that we're going to work together on to get the best one for your needs. But just as a general rule of thumb, if you have 100 square foot of roof area, how much rain in gallons do you think? I mean, how much water in gallons would be harvested off of a 1-inch rain? Anybody want to guess? And can y'all unmute and actually talk like we're in a room, or is it only chat tonight?
I think it's Q&A, technically chat, but we're using Q&A, but also someone can raise their hand as well if they choose to.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just give the answer since I can't, verbally have y'all do it. Whoops. Let me see if I can. I was trying to get rid of my Q&A thing and I hit advance too much. So now I got to figure out how to, let's see if I right click. Does that go back? Yes. Previous. Here we go. 62 gallons. So y'all can jot that down, commit it to memory. 62 gallons for every 1 inch of rain off of 100 square feet. So you can roughly figure out on the roofs you're thinking about how much water you would get based on, 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch rain, whatever. Our guidelines, our standard has us designing, and if somebody chooses the financial assistance route and goes with contracting, then the system will be based on a max of 8 inches of catch off of their roof. But if they want to do more, that is almost always, allowed, as long as we have some analysis things of water budgeting that'll help you figure out if that's worth doing or not. The beauty of rainwater harvesting, it can be a staged process. You can put, if you just have money to go to Lowe's and get you 10 foot of gutter and a rain barrel, you can start there. And you can, use that rainwater on your plants that you want to have rainwater as their sole irrigation. And then you can expand from there. Usually our systems, we don't go with the rain barrel size that you see in a lot of really small systems. We usually start with, I would say, 1,000 gallon to 1,500 gallon tank would be the smallest, that I've worked on. That doesn't mean we could go smaller if that was the need, but here we go again. Let's see what I was trying. So a 60 by 40 foot barn will produce 1,500 gallons of water and in a 1-inch rain. And if I hadn't lost my ending slides, my example that I threw together while Keith was talking would match that, but you're going to see a 50 by 30 foot example at the end instead of 60 by 40. But if we have time, we can redo the math for this if it's something somebody has. But that's 30,000 gallons a year if your rainfall is 20 inches. And I would think that the majority of y'all are in 30-inch or better rainfall, areas. So you definitely can, there's a lot to be caught. It's not super reliable, but it is, we have 80 years of data that we get and do a water budget from. And, it's the best kind of planning you could do for something as variable as rainfall amounts at your specific location. And we develop that. It's a water budget is what we call it. And there's some simple ones. And I can, when I send the PowerPoint to Mr. Wade to be shared with you all, I'll also send this PDF of the rainwater harvesting manual. You can get it off of the Texas AgriLife. They do have a lot of real small scale examples if you just want to start out with some small scale rain barrel type things, they have a lot of good stuff on that. And so your local county agent would be able to get you the info on that, or just a search of rainwater harvesting Texas AgriLife would get you right to their resources. But here's a budget that's in that book for someone who lives in the Dallas area. This is the budget that our fancy spreadsheet will produce for you. Nice bar graph and a percent of how much your expected demand will be. And by demand, that means you have to kind of estimate how much irrigation water that would be above and beyond what effective rainfall you get on your crop, or you water from your watering hose, and anywhere in between. You have to kind of give an estimate of what you think you'll need, and that's usually starts out in the start of the growing season as a small amount, gets a little bigger the next month, gets a little bigger, and then your peak months in the growing season of June, July, and August are going to be your max water use. And you're trying to meet what Keith mentioned is the consumptive use of your plant. You just have to make the best guesstimate you can. And we use this rainfall data to come up with the percent demand that you're likely to meet in an average year. This one actually got close in June, because wherever this location was, that happened to be one of the higher, rainfall months historically. But it would vary, based on where you're at. So that was a note to my self to do, and I didn't get the time to do it because that was where my jobs were. I was going to show you the real info from my job. I've seen them down as low as 30% meeting the demand because their irrigation demand was so high. Well, if you're paying a rural water system a water bill, and you can take 30% off it every month, and it's not always a direct correlation, you will get a savings, even if on average it ends up being that much effective water from the rainwater harvesting system. It's just something that you have to make plans for, and then manage it the best you can as it actually rolls out each day, weather-wise. And Mr. Wade, if you don't mind, so it'll save time. Any question you see that comes up in Q&A that is something about the slide we're talking about or the topic, I don't mind stopping and talking about it right then. If you just want to say, "Hey, Kevin, I got a question," and that I won't consider that interrupting at all. There's always going to be something on my slide people can read if they're not interested in the question.
I don't see anything. Yes, but I do have a question. I just didn't put it in the chat, but I'm sure since you're on this slide, others are probably thinking it, which is, and I don't know if you can answer this, but can you give us an idea of the setup cost of one of these systems? Let's say if we're doing just a small thing, because I think that's probably going through a lot of our minds right now, considering the savings you just mentioned.
Right. And I have that at the end, but
okay, you can hold it up to the end.
Yeah, but I'm for and then I just say as part of our system, I'll freely admit, is don't oftentimes see the receipts of get the real cost of what a cooperator has expended on a project. The way that our EQIP program is set up, it's based on economists at the national level projecting cost of our different practices, and I can share what the pay schedule rate is going to be if you got in an EQIP contract, and then I'll just say that if you've got $1,000 that you can dedicate to a rainwater harvesting system, you can probably get an effective something going on one of your outbuildings. And then you could go up from there based on available funds. But one of the unique things that I want to get in your thinking, because it does frustrate a lot of our cooperators, is practice is set up to be paid on the linear foot of gutter that's installed, and it's supposed to be on non-residences. So, we try to work with every individual, and on one case, someone was living in a barn dominium, but half of it was clearly their shop. And so we had in the contract the gutter that went on their shop half of the building, and they paid for their gutter on their house part, but we put storage in to the system for both sides. We just didn't, you just can't hang a gutter with the taxpayers' dollars on the side of your residence. But we can collect the water off of it and store it for you. And then the other kind of odd thing is you don't get any direct payment on the piping from the gutter, what we call the downspout. When water leaves the gutter and goes into the ground, or into this case, a collection system, that's called a downspout. And that all the way to the storage tank is different various piping depending on the layout of your building and where you got to put your storage tanks. That's all called appurtenances, which is used in irrigation work and a few other of our practices, which means a fancy word for things that you're not going to get paid on individually, but are supposed to be included by those really smart economists and have a pay rate, incentive rate that covers those extra costs. So I'll just say, if y'all ever do work with us in equip and you want to share your costs with us, we will sure take that information, keep it private, and use it to fight for better cost in Texas. That's kind of what I've told the folks in my zone, and what I do in working with our cooperators on every kind of practice, just to bring some reality to what the economists are getting from cost guides and different, inflation rates and stuff like that. The storage tanks are going to be paid on by the gallon. The gutters are going to be paid on by the linear feet. And then the livestock water system that you hook up that water to is going to be like a normal livestock water system. In fact, you're probably going to want, like I said, you need the reliable thing. You're going to have your well hooked into your livestock water system, and this is just going to be supplemental water, but they'll both be plumbed in. That was what our one producer that I'm going to show you his system later. So the catchment area is any roof. It doesn't have to be the barn roof. It could be a shop roof, it could be a shed, anything that sheds water that has a sturdy enough side to it that a gutter can be attached. Either if it's a metal building, you can attach it to the truss ends by welding or screwing it in with metal screw, or there's wood fascia boards that get screwed in. It just depends on what building you're trying to gutter. So here is one that was, I would say, is a very small scale livestock water guy. He was not doing any irrigation. He was watering more than that one chicken, I promise. But he had a little part hay barn, part animal, protection barn right here, and got it guttered on both sides and ran the water. This long pipe here is coming from the right side of the building. And then he has a configuration over here on this side to catch it and put it in this storage tank. Notice we also like to have a good solid foundation, stable foundation. This is, batter boards filled back with pea gravel. And it worked great to have a nice flat, foundation for his storage tank.
I have
The
a quick
gutters and
question. I have a quick
Sure,
question
sure.
there. Just while you're hitting that, sorry for the interruption there.
No,
Uh,
no interruption.
There's a question that says, should one be concerned about building a foundation after installing a rainwater harvesting system?
Just for the storage tank, because you don't want it to get, uneven on you and have, erosion around it. So we usually try to get a nice, foundation pad. Some of the manufacturers want you to cable it down. You'll see a picture where one cooperator, needed to do that. Personally, I think the weight of the water is going to keep it down, except maybe in West Texas, it might need cable down if because in a drought, when it gets low and empty, they actually will move. The wind will move them. So it's not like it's not possible, but it's more possible in West Texas than it is in our part, in East Texas. But it's again, it's an appurtenance of the storage tank price. So I'll just tell you ahead of time, the pay rate in 2022 for a storage tank was 48 cents a gallon. So for a 3,000 gallon tank, that's about $1,400 and something. I have the exact calculation further in the presentation. And these cost not much more than that, especially if you can work out a deal to go get it yourself with your flatbed trailer, and you can kind of decide, what size, height best fits your building and what you could transport with yours or your friends' flatbed trailers. And that saves you some money than having it delivered, to your place. But most of the dealers will work a deal out where you can go pick it up yourself. Sometimes in Corsicana, there's one manufacturer that actually makes them at a plant in Corsicana called Norwesco. And if you've bought it through a dealer, they will let you go to the plant and pick it up. So
All right.
that's kind of good.
One other question, since you're hitting on it, I was going to table it to the end when you got closer to some of the costs and things like that you mentioned, but I have a suggestion to ask you about advanced payment options for historically underserved customers.
Yes, that is absolutely on any of our EQIP assistance programs. That's available, and you just work with the local field office to go through their paperwork to do that. So absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, there's no practice that's excluded from that availability, but there is a protocol that you have to step through an extra paper. So it does take probably a little bit. I mean, Willie can tell more about that later, but I think it takes a little bit longer early on in the project, but then it basically ends up being the same, as one that doesn't get an early payment once you go through those extra steps.
All right. So Willie, you see, he teed you up. So we don't want to know about that.
Well,
Yeah,
I'll say this on the advance payment. Before you accept the advance payment is good if you do the right thing. Now, I would say first have a plan. If it's a engineering practice, then you need to have a design before you accept the money.
That's right.
And also, you have to spend that money within 90 days. That advance payment have to be spent within 90 days of accepting the payment. That means you need to go out and buy your material and have it spent within 90 days. That is mostly it on the advance payment. And I say again, it's good when you're doing the right thing, when you accept the advance payment. In some cases, we can cancel a contract, due to Mother Nature. If Mother Nature came and blew the shed down, we can say, hey, look, let's cancel the contract and start back over. But once you accept that advance payment, there's no turning back on that because you have accepted the money. But just keep that in mind.
That's why we
Got it.
depend on Willie to keep us grounded, because he knows the comments, and by him saying that, it jogged my memory. So almost all of my cooperators have experienced a longer anticipated time of construction of these projects than they thought, because the town people, gutter people, don't like coming to the country and working on country places. And so it's been hard to get a contractor for the actual gutter part themselves. They're not that they can't get one, but they do have to ask around, talk around. And so if you're getting an advance payment, you will want to get the design, ahead of time, which you would need to get the advance payment anyway. But before you sign to accept it, go and make sure that you've got the contractor, you've got the material that it's there and can be ordered, and is it on supply chain delay and things like that. Definitely, there has been some frustrating delays by some of the landowners that they got just from the trying to obtain the supplies that they needed to do their project, and particularly the gutter part.
Okay, so here's another question that's in the Q&A, and I'm not sure if it's something that we should forward to you later on, but I'm going to read it anyway, just
Okay.
in
Go
case
ahead.
you want to answer it now.
I'll put
or
out this
table it.
other stuff so y'all can just read it while I'm answering this question, because this is one of the just the purely informational thing.
Yeah. Okay, appreciate it. So it says 30 by, it sounds like this person has a 30 by 47 residence with a 20 by 30 carport storage area, all with existing gutters. What would be other required monetary what would be the other required monetary outputs for the landowner?
So am I understanding, do they already have gutters on the whole residence and carport?
That's how it reads. It says all with existing
Well,
gutters.
if they do, probably they need to still look and see if they have one shop building or shed or something that they could call an ag building. And I'll ask Keith what his experience is, but in my experience, I've added already existing water or water they're going to be doing on their own due to that residence rule. But we've had at least one ag building getting a certain amount of feet of gutters. It wasn't very much. And then we can put storage for everything in the storage. But I haven't done a pre-existing residence because, carport is, if you call it your truck shed, maybe, I don't know, Willie and his fellow planners, and he was a former planner, y'all, before, he started doing what he's doing now. They would just have to work with you on what would make a good or an allowable contract bid, I guess. But I'm thinking you might need to add one little ag building to that scenario and collect water from everything. If you've got, an ag, a use for the water, then that's reason, for collecting the water. But you have to have 558 in there. I haven't seen a storage tank only equipped contract. I'll just say, I'm not saying it's not impossible, but it would be something that would need to be discussed and worked out. But we are totally open to taking wherever resource. I mean, we have a fancy word for resource concerns you have when you walk in our door or call us on the telephone, and we want to go out and visit your place, get to know you, get to know what you're, what kind of economic enterprises you're considering, and help develop some good alternatives for you to go there, achieve that. And if rainwater harvesting is part of it, we'll come up with a conservation plan that hopefully a lot of it will be able to go into contract and receive incentive payment. But sometimes there's parts that won't, but you get the whole plan for free, and you get parts of it, incentive money to carry it out. So that's kind of the way we try to, do our business and help everybody as best we can with where they're at to go to the next step. So don't take any of the answers or my slides as, not something that we can't discuss more on if we're standing at your place and seeing your individual situation. Okay. But it's good. Keep asking questions about your situation so you can, learn a little bit more about it. There's two types of gutters that can be hung. There's a K style, which are showed here on the left and the right. Same gutter, just showing the two different dimensions there in the field office. And this is out on the day of construction, that this is a box bead one. And the box bead will flow more water. Why it looks like this one's wider, but it's just the part of the physics. It's got I think it's because it has a wider bottom width than these two. These have like 4-inch bottom width, and the K style. So, and these are both 7.5-inch gutters, believe it or not. But they're two different styles. And it's not a whole lot more that a box bead will carry, but basically what my cooperators have done is shop around whichever's available and cheaper per linear foot, and that's the one they're going to get. And we give always the option of what's the smallest K style, what's the, so like a 6-inch K style, a 5-inch box bead will carry the same amount of water usually. But if the 6-inch K style is cheaper, you should get it, instead of hunting for the 5-inch. Just because you think in your head, oh, 5-inch is going to be cheaper. Not always. So there is a lot of research. And here's the Palestine lady that did her own project and bought the part. She and her husband put this stuff up. And that's where you can kind of see, you got to use your imagination. It looks like a K, I guess. I never can see the things in those pictures thing, but it definitely looks more like a K than a box. So I'll grant them that. This was a K style one. And she's just showing the different dimensions there for the photo. This part right here under the gutter, you're about to see the inside of it, is the downspout. It's a very short one into the collection pipe. Oh, there's my little question. Do you see the K? I talked ahead of my little thing. So now we go out to West Texas and we see that box bead installed. And both kinds will have the supports and then there's a screw, you'll see a picture later, that goes into the fascia board or a metal screw and keeps this supported into the wall. And here they are installing it. This is the true box. If I've got a thing here, do you see the box? Well, yeah, that one's easier to see, I think. And you can, that looks like a little K there because it's leaning out. But as soon as they put the brackets on top, this, what kind of looks like the K in the other, or is the K in the other one, this is more like a batter board where the water runs off the roof and comes in, has to come into the gutter instead of jumping out of it. That's your main goal, is the size of the gutter, that for most rains that 5-minute intense rain that you saw as our design rain is what we're trying to catch and flow in these gutters so that you don't have spillage. You're trying to minimize spillage out of your gutter. And then you got to have, with anything with water, you got to have good seals. It can get messy and sticky when you're having to put the mastic and whatever to get these kind of deals, because sometimes the plumbing parts are not the best, fitting, and you have to, use unlike materials, metal to plastic. It works, but you have to do a little, extra effort to make it fit snug and not leak. Now, the thing that this will go to after the downspout and before it goes to your tank, that first rain, just like the first rain when you're driving on the road is the most dangerous part of driving. Well, you have a lot of yuck on your roof that you don't really notice until you start to collect it in a storage tank. And you don't want that to go in your storage tank. So you use gravity as your friend, and you make a large enough pipe that the water has to travel over and drop in and fill that pipe. And then settlement happens, and the sediment and trash will go on down to the bottom of the pipe. Okay. And that's what your goal is. And you, at the bottom of that first flush, you have a clean out plug. And I meant to add that most people decide it's best to drill a couple of holes, to like weep holes, to just let the water out of that so that they don't have to go and get, any plastic or metal, pipe, grooved pipe, cover that you're supposed to hand turn. Well, the day you put it on, it'll hand turn that afternoon. 3 days later, you got to get your wrench to get it off. And so found practical thing, drill some weep holes, and they only have to wrench it off to get the crud out every 2 months or 1 month, or, it just depends on how many rains you get and how dirty the roof was. And they kind of work with a system. And so this is what I'm talking about, the square wrench, pipe wrench kind of clean out that you can take off if you need to. So here's our biggest East Texas producer system. And he has 4,500 gallon tanks in his system. So really big, right at 27,000 gallons he's collecting, but he's trying to water a regular size herd of 20 plus cow calf and not use as well water that much. So it's gonna be interesting. I'm kept a relation with him. He's only had it in this drought year, so it's not a good year to tell how much it's helped him.
So Kevin, is it important
Yes.
that he used 6-inch or 4-inch gutter? How did that play a part in determining the gutter that you're going to put up?
Okay, so that'll be part of our design process to put a little slope in the gutter, put strategic downspouts, downspout location, even though if you can shorten the amount of catch, so to speak, out of the gutter that you're going to get, and that will keep your gutter sizes down if you have a really long roof. So this guy had 100-foot long roof, and we were able to design it because of where he needed to put his tanks. It ended up being 2/3 to the end. He has 4 tanks. If you walk along this barn in this picture towards that open end, you're going to see at the end in a picture later of 4 collection tanks, and he has 1 up on this 1/3 and 1 on the other side on his 1/3. So it's strategic. Keep it within the first, the Equip contract. It's a 4 to 6 inch size gutter choice, and we try to keep it in the 4 to 6 inch because that's where the most common gutters off the shelf can be obtained. Get larger than that, you have to go to a custom builder like the Mueller company which I think they pronounce it Miller, but it's spelled Muller, steel company. So, it's all part of the design. We try to get them as small as they can. And then you some creative supports for these heavy plastic pipes that are hanging off your roof. He poured a little concrete. He made this thing out of some scrap wood he had, and it's kept it supported, and it's working. And in my thing, I can't see the bottom of this, but you're going to see this is the West Texas one on the right, and they just do things a little fancier out in West Texas. This is his, not weep holes, but an actual irrigation valve that they put in to their first flush to drain that water off. And you can see it looks fairly dirty. So that's been working for them. Now, storage tanks, size of tanks can cause you some challenges. You gotta design them based on the height of your building because gravity is your friend. You carry your tanks, haven't gone there yet. Don't think that's going to be cost effective. So we try to make it where they will gravity flow from the edge of your roof into the tank and through some type of piping on maybe the side of your building, to get it over to the tank. And then we always put an overflow on these rainfall storage tanks. We also do it on our livestock water storage tanks. But the reason we do it here is it is always going to have a storm that you weren't expecting and be above the design of the system. And you're going to, unfortunately, quote, waste some water. You can try to route your overflow pipe to something useful if you want to. Your goldfish pond or whatever, but you definitely need it so that it's not coming out the top of your storage tank, but it's routed somewhere. Also, we found out just in the last year that manufacturers are getting a little more picky about requiring anchoring, but in particular, flexible PVC hookup. The Endurus Plus company particularly has said that with this East Texas guy that I'm showing you pictures of, and he had to buy this flexible PVC hookup. Not very expensive, just a different way to go from the bottom of the tank into your buried line that's going out to his livestock watering system. So here's that big West Texas system. You get a picture of how big their barn shop animal resting area is on both sides, and that they have 4 tanks that I think are 4,000 gallons. So a little bit smaller than my East Texas one, but big. But just because I'm serve East Texas, I'm going to say we're bigger. At least on this job we were. And so here he did the work himself, y'all. So you notice nothing's hooked up to these tanks. He went and bought those tanks, went and hauled them himself, and put one up at a time. Did 6 of them, did all this work before he ever hung any gutter and collection pipe. That was his mode of work that he decided to do. And it worked out well. So each individual can decide how they want to install the system. Just work with the NRCS office and the staff will help you plan it out, based on what your circumstances are. This little hose here is purely that's his need some water from his, storage tank hose. And that was just my little brag that they have 4 5,000 gallon tanks. I'm sorry. So 20,000 gallons total. And we had 6 4,500 gallon tanks. So it was, bigger. And then here they are side by side looking at the stamping that you'll get on them. The left one is a Norwesco tank. They're also marketing a rainwater tank under No, mine's a different name. It's going to show up in one of my slides. Wadley or something like that. It's some
Wiley
odd name.
sprayers.
Wiley, that's it. Thank you, Keith. And is in Duraplast. Now, this stuff at the top is operator designed. He wanted a system that would fill his tanks with well water when the roof water wasn't happening, the rainwater wasn't happening. So he has ability for rainwater to go in here. And when it reaches a certain level, because he's depending on this for his livestock water, y'all. And it happened to be that his barn was in a high part of his property. Everything can gravity feed from it. And so he wants to distribute from these tanks into his livestock water system. So he has it automated to sense the level in that tank and come on and add well water when needed. So, oh, there it is. See, I just didn't press my thing. I had put it on there. Norwesco and Wiley and automation made in automation options. So
there's
again, plan a backup.
So we have a
Yes,
few
right.
questions, and I know we're a little bit past our 90 minutes, so apologize for that, everyone. But there's just some good information, and truly appreciate you, Kevin, for really hitting this and helping us understand. I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna ask every question because I know we're short on time, but I do want to throw a couple out there at you. It says, one question says, are there any resources for unconventional buildings to attach gutters, such as adobe structures that do not have an overhang or awning?
Well, we would have to be able to get the water into the gutter. That's the key thing. I didn't show a picture of a building on my aquaponics place here on these two pictures on the left are from a really neat aquaponics nursery that did a rainwater system with us here on the edge of Bryan. And I have more slides to tell you more about later, but basically they had a weird shaped roof building, kind of greenhousey shape that over their fish raising part that they use. And it just didn't catch enough water because the gutters had to be, about 10 inches down the edge of the building. There wasn't a way to attach it right on the edge. So it just would be something we'd have to look at and decide if masonry screws could screw it right to the adobe and catch it right on the edge or not. So it just would have to be looked at. But like I said, we're always open to looking at any building you want a gutter, and we'll give our best advice on your options with that building, or help you narrow down. So, okay, I want this system, but I need to do it in stages. So here's building A I'm gonna do first, and then here's building B, and then C, and do it in stages. This was a neat thing out in West Texas. Noticed the yucca plant, and he marked his system and had some type of, Keith, is that an add-on that he was able to buy from as a rainwater thing from the Noresco folks, or did he make this?
I think he made that. It's just it's just a piece of clear tubing on the outside that will show where the water is inside the tank. Because you'll notice all these tanks are black. That's one of our requirements, so that we can limit the algal growth inside these tanks.
Yeah,
but
they're black or green, y'all, normally.
Right. But without some kind of external gauge or something, you can't tell where the water is. And you can see on that one's a 12-foot tall tank. So if he wanted to try to figure out where that water was, he'd have to have a ladder or something every time. So
and that was my point on this slide. So this is right in their front door. They have two of them now. They had to move the tank that wasn't catching very much on their little greenhouse thing. They moved it over here because they had larger roof on this side because of this awning. So you got to remember that some buildings aren't proportional because of an awning on one side and not on the other. And they were wasting water out in the parking lot here in this overflow way too often. And but it's only a 4.5 foot tall tank, maybe 5. So their tallest person that works there can look over in this hole and see where the water is if they have to, and you can develop like, thumping a watermelon, figuring out where that water is in the tank, but it's not super accurate. That's why the gentleman did these nice painted numbers and made this little, clear tubing so he could see where it was and do his planning. So, again, design it to what your individual need is. So here we're back on the place in Montalba, tree area of Palestine. They didn't have a bunch just right next to this outbuilding in their home, but they were there, the leaves blow in and they just wanted to, so I'm sure your grandmother and grandfather told you this before in the past, after you learned the lesson the hard way. They reminded you, you can pay now or you can pay later. So my opinion is pay for that leaf guard. This one was well designed. See how it's screwed in here, strong. It's going to be easily swept off and cleaned off if it does get, clogged. So well worth whatever extra money they paid for it over the long term. You're thinking 15 years, that gutter's going to at least last 15 years and hopefully longer. Go ahead and do a few of the extras that save you maintenance time. And here's those long screws that I was telling you about. They assembled this, on the ground, and then they put it up on the side of the building and start screwing it into their fascia board with these long screws that are equally providing support across the gutter and attachment to the building. So pretty neat system. Now we're back to our livestock guy. This is how big a place he had. The area to the left and right of this is his hayland. So he had quite an operation, but he ran cattle in the yellow paddocks. And he had a system that he also was pretty entrepreneur. He thought he wanted to become the used equipment tire livestock trough dealer for East Texas. Well, he likes his installs and he likes how they work, but his supplier, who wants him to be his dealer, didn't communicate quickly or well. So I don't think he's going to do it. He didn't give me a name that I can pass on, but I'll just say I ran across one that was kind of pushy one time about 10 years ago at a county fair about these. And these look a lot better than the ones that gentleman was selling. So it's all about, besides, pay now or pay later, show me the money, show me the product before I buy it. And I would definitely, do that if you wanted to do an unconventional type of trough. But like I said, his is working pretty well and holds more water than I thought it would. Side note, the leaking part is the concrete in the center here of the tire, and that seam between tire and concrete. That's where your trough's going to leak if you don't do a really good job of installing there. And it looks like he did it well. Now here, I was just going to check, is it Mr. Lewis Morgan on this call? Because at one time, I think he was a part of y'all's group, and Willie worked with this gentleman before he left Bryan. I think, is that right, Willie?
Yes.
Yes. So he had a shop building, a little bit away from his house. He also, which I did not have a picture of his hoop house. He did a hoop house first with us, and then he decided he needed or wanted some better quality water and water he didn't have to pay the city of Navasota for, because I think he was right on the edge of Navasota. And so he did a guttering system with us, a rainwater harvesting system. And I believe the smaller tank was something that he added on his own. No, we were able to, he had At the time, and this is still in, we did not have a way of attaching gutters to any of the hoop houses, whether it be a kit that was supposedly manufactured to go with that hoop house or not. It was a pure rule thing about lifespan. Hoop houses have 5 years of expected life, gutters have 15, and we couldn't put a 15-year life thing on a 5-year structure. That's being discussed in in the urban conservation realm, and we'll see where it goes in the future. But again, we could put the storage amount from the hoop house that he was planning to gutter, and that's what we did. And I've lost contact with Mr. Morgan. I don't know if he's sold any of his product yet or not. He's pretty much using it for himself, a little bit of farmers market experimenting, but not a whole lot at the time that we got this system in for him. Now here's my really neat first job done in our zone. I can't remember the year now, but it was the aquaponics on the edge of town, growing everything in water. They built, this was existing. All we did was help them get rainwater because they were paying Wixon Valley for rural water, and it was pH of 8.8. It was not growing their plants very well, not allowing their phosphorus uptake that they needed from the fertilizer. Their first solution, we're going to add fish to the system. Their feces will be acidic. It'll bring the pH down. Barely moved the bubble. Did provide, some extra organic fertilizer because they were totally organic operation. So that was a neat system, but it wasn't doing what they needed done. And 3 storage tanks have made them have 0 water bill for the most part, except what, they have for consumption of the people working there and stuff. And they moved from a family run business for a profit to one member of the family now runs it as a employment place for special needs adults. And they have over 20 adults working there, making all this great restaurant food, basically. And they have a storefront hours on Fridays, I think. And so the local public can buy from them. But they've been just super happy with their system. And it was purely based on water quality, not so much quantity. These are just other considerations, which we already talked about, how you can break up the long gutters by adding downspouts, and you can reduce the size of them. But you just weigh the cost and decide what is going to be the most economical for you. And you figure out where you want your tanks so they're not in your way doing your normal, ag operations around the building and things like that. So it's just, like any other conservation practices, you just got to put a lot of pre-study and thought and consider the alternatives and get some costs on them and then decide which one you want to do. Any questions? Sorry, I've gone over. A huge part of that reason is because of my technical difficulty, and can't believe I had to put an hour's worth of slides in 15 minutes while Keith was talking, but you saved me to at least finish it out. It was the version that came back after my computer had to be shut down was not what I had actually done for y'all.
No, that was a beautiful save. The information that you provided was right on.
Yeah. So we kind of talked about this, but Mr. Wade asked me to anticipate some questions, and I figured that was, the first question I want is, how do I get help on these? Well, just call the local USDA NRCS office and tell them, that you want a field visit, and mention the rainwater harvesting part, because not every field office person is versed in that yet. It's still a fairly new practice. And if you tell them that up front, they might be able to schedule someone close that has done it. We have several technicians that do it. regularly, and field engineers and myself. So, so just make it known that that's one of your resource concerns that you're thinking about. And if you want to impress them, you can say, yeah, I already know it's a code 558 and y'all have a weird name called roof runoff management. And see, I even got that wrong. That's what it used to be. I'm going to change that slide. It's roof runoff structure now. So I'm not even keeping up with the changes that we get, each year. Seems like we get some, but that's all right. It keeps us on our toes. And so here is the cost thing. And again, I can move this box. I can move that box so I can see the bottom of my slide. Like anything, usually the smaller projects are going to be less expensive, but sometimes you get a little bit of a savings if you go, a little bit larger and get that economy of scale. Just has to be studied with those alternatives that the NRCS staff will help you form. But again, it can be incremental. That was the word I meant to put in that slide. It doesn't have to all be done on your very first project. That was the way. I'll give Keith kudos on that drip irrigation. He was a part of the industry side and then the NRCS side to convince farmers to say, hey, try drip on 10 acres, 20 acres, do it a whole season, see if you like it before you put in 200 acres. And that really, helps a person get that bell curve, huge steep curve, learning curve done in the first small stage before they go bigger. And then it's a much bigger headache if it doesn't work exactly as planned. And same with building a house. People say you learn more each one you try to build. So there's the 30 by 50 barn, and I'll just say, I personally think that is under what a person's going to spend. Keith, what is your experience? I mean, that's the number with the historically underserved increased pay rate of $458 a foot. And so for a small building, you're not going to get much for the gutters. And, that's going to pay a percentage of what it costs to put the gutters up, but not a very large one, I don't think. It does, the tank incentive does seem to get closer to what you're going to spend on a tank. We have no idea what the FY23 ones will look like. Hopefully there's been some considerable inflation adjustments, but we don't know yet. Just stay in contact. I mean, it's always good. You can sign up for eQuip any day, any business day of the week. So get your name in the hat if you're interested. And by going to the local field office and then start working on your plan and just go by real cost, y'all. Get out there and get what it's really going to cost you to get the size of system you want. And then you can make an educated decision about whether working with the government's incentive program will be beneficial and how much beneficial. Because that's one thing that's always true. Before you sign an eQuip contract, you see what the maximum amount you can get. You do get only paid on the installed amount. But in these rainwater systems, that's pretty well known. We don't have too much overestimating in those because we work with the person ahead of time on what they want to do and kind of have the system size nailed down that they're choosing. And you can make an educated cost decision. And of course, costs are always going up. And so that's incentive to, even if you didn't get the early payment, try to get your project in 90 days if you can, because you're going to get, costs are just going up. And the NRCS staff will just be tickle pink if you want to get started the week after you sign a contract. And if you're already prepared do that. It would be great.
That's
So,
great stuff. Great. I mean, I want to sneak in one last question here. And I'll let you. It looks like you got some more information here.
well, I'm just going to put these up
Okay.
for purely information. I know a lot of our attendees probably tonight have young people in their lives that are seeking employment, or in college, or where I just want to throw it out there that we are in a hiring mode and encourage them to go to the USA Jobs and get their name in the hat for summer internships, and they will be coming out in October normally. So give them a heads up about that. That's why I put this slide in, because there are a lot of older individuals like myself and Willie, and Keith's probably younger than us, and that might be retiring in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I was trying to make
Yeah.
I was trying to make Keith born in 1994, so definitely younger than us. But no, let me get this question in, and then what we'll do, we'll shift gears, finish up. I may give Mr. Holman the floor just to kind
Absolutely,
of
email me
reiterate.
any questions, any examples of y'all's place that you're
Okay.
thinking about, and then we'll plan a phone call together to talk about it. Or if you just like calling, write that number down and give me a call, and we'll talk about it.
All right. Here's the last question that may be on other folks' mind. It says, have you seen equip fund underground cisterns? It says our ag building is a Quonset hut. So that's the question there. Underground cisterns.
I have not yet. Keith, do you think we have anything in our
No,
specs that
I haven't seen
would
any
prevent
either.
that?
No, we haven't done anything on a Quonset hut or anything with a cistern. And I would have to talk to the programs guys and some of the other engineers on that.
Right.
But
we probably have to do, just, step through that and see. But when you bury something, some of these tanks are for water storage only above ground, and they sell a more expensive, thicker tank for burial, like, septic tanks are. So it probably, and sometimes people don't realize if you have any relief to your property, in other words, elevation difference, if you can pipe your downspouts and hook them into a pipe system, and then take that pipe, it can be 100 feet down, as long as it's downhill, and fill you up a tank that's standing on the ground down there potentially, or at least a very small tank that you could put a little booster pump in and boost it into your larger storage tank for very minimal electricity use, just a real tiny kind of transfer pump thing. So there's ways to engineer it to keep it all above ground, if that's less expensive than buying the variable tanks.
All right. So what we're going to do now, I want to shift gears and take a quick poll, and we'll make sure that we get this information out to everybody with the recording as well. But I want to do a quick poll question to finish things up here. So it says, are you interested to learn more about rainwater harvesting systems? Meaning, and really I probably should have worded that, are you interested in moving forward with more information on this? So if you don't mind, if you could answer that real quick, and then apologize for my spelling there. All right. Let's see, we've got it.
I'm sitting there trying to click that yes, because I want to learn more about it too. And then I read the red print, host and panelists cannot vote.
Yeah, you're not allowed to cast that vote.
All right. Well, I won't
All
turn
right.
you in for excluding me. I'll just let everybody know that I do want to learn too, and I learn from every cooperator I've ever worked with in 33 years. We learn just as much from y'all as we hope to help y'all learn, and we learn it together lots of times.
That's right. Well, I got good news for you. You did an excellent job. Both of y'all, both Kevin and Keith, because it looks like our numbers are wonderful. Up to 100% are interested in learning more about these systems. So great job. Definitely appreciate y'all what you shared today. I know we had some technical difficulties early on, but better late than never. So anyway, wanted to
I learned a valuable lesson for next time. I'm just going to use one computer, no extra screens.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. So we'll finish things up here. One thing, great information once again. One thing to remember, and I think Mr. Holman really said it, is that one thing that's very important if you are planning on moving forward and reaching out to learn more about these programs, remember roof runoff structure, that's a key word. But also remember that there's rules to the game here. So a lot of times we get calls from farmers who are complaining or producers who are complaining because things aren't quite working out for them with the program that they're in, and only to find out that that particular producer is trying to play by their own rules. Not something you want to do. If that's something you plan on doing, this is not the program for you. But if you are planning on following the rules and reaching out to them and following them step by step, this could be a great tool for all of us on this call. So I wanted to point that out because so often we're hearing negative feedback. Not all the time. A lot of times we're getting great feedback, but a lot of times we get negative feedback only to find out that that particular producer is kind of trying to play by their own rules, and that doesn't work. So wanted to throw that out there because I know Mr. Holman's hit on it a number of times, and it's very important that we keep that at the forefront. I know we're over time, so just a couple of reminders. Please continue to make it a habit to check your weekly newsletter or our website to stay in the know on some of the different small farming news, events, and insights that are coming up. Also, you can sign up for that our newsletter by simply going to our website at tcfrcbo.org. For some of the upcoming events that are going on around Texas, just go to the Farmer's Digest, which is really a different format for our newsletter that you can get that information in there. We do have an upcoming event coming up on October 18th where we asked Farm Service Agency, who we're partnering with, to come in and talk a little bit more about their organic certifications and introducing their cost sharing program for those who are interested in learning more about that. So be on the lookout for that. And lastly, if you're on this call and there's some information that you want, you're not quite sure where to find it or where to go, or maybe you're just starting out as a farmer, please feel free to reach out to us. Again, we're going to shoot you out an email if you have some questions or anything like that. If we don't know the answer, you can bet that we're going to try to get you in front of the right person to get you that answer. So that's pretty much it. Before we depart, want to say another special thanks to our panelists here today. Excellent job. Kevin Lestraps, Keith Sides, and Willie Holman, and also a special thanks to our team behind the scenes at Texas Small Farmers Ranchers CBO. Remember, be checking your email for the recording the next 48 hours or so. And until then, make it a great day, make it a great week, and we'll be talking to you later. Take care.
Yeah, it was great, y'all. Thanks so much for your patience, and I look forward to working with y'all in the future.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you, Philip.